Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings,
And ourselves.
we stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world heroes among us, and every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find, with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place, with love in us all. And you will find, together we can save it all. And you will find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a better place, a whole new world,
space. We'll be talking about it all every Thursday night, from software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
All right. I think we're getting some little blips here from Tony, so we'll see if we get him straightened out again. But we're back again. There he is on a Thursday. Give him a second to settle down here, get his camera going. And we'll see what we got happening for tonight. I know we've got some things on IT mergers. There he is. Moving along. We'll give him some time to get sorted out. I see movement. He'll be back. And once he gets back, we'll get into what's going on for tonight.
I'm coming, Glenn.
But wait, you were over there. How did you get over there? You're supposed to be over here.
Well, I'm still waiting for this one to catch up.
That's all right. But happy Thursday. Glad you made it.
And so got to reload the page on this one.
Mm-hmm. That's all right.
Yeah, well, the snow started here, and the Starlink is still warming up, it seems.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to kickstart that internet. Get it all going.
I'm back, but I don't have my screen share now.
That's all right.
There we go.
There he is.
Oh, no, you
bit by
go
bit.
away until we get to the cave.
Gotta hide the cave and then come back.
See, now it's November and all hell is breaking loose.
Yeah, but that's the thing is you got snow already. I mean, we were mostly, I think we got down to 45 the other day, but definitely not snow yet.
Well, what was surprising was how fast it came down. I mean, in 20 minutes, I got 2 inches, like out of nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah. We were supposed to have, I think, 50, 60 mile an hour wind gusts last night. So it was definitely howling, but didn't get that
that's
cold.
the other thing that's been weird the last like week and a half. We've had some really powerful winds.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The storms. So
Yeah.
East Coast all the way from Maine to New York, apparently.
It's going to be one of those El Nino winters.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. They were saying it's going to be pretty bad. So we shall see.
Now, and let's see what we're going to be looking at tonight.
Nice.
The Shh IT cave. Now I want that share. Come on.
There it is. Perfect.
There we are. Oh, no, but I can't see it that way.
There it is. But it's all the way over there.
Nice. I'm on top of the world.
Now you can see it and I can see it. Perfect.
Yeah. And what we're going to be looking at tonight, we got a little mixture. We can't ignore the AI news because every week something else is happening. And in the last week, there was some big things going on between Udio and Universal. They were talking about it all week, and the last couple of days, I guess they came up with a settlement. and I'm still curious as to the details behind this, but our AI channels and our YouTube channels that we follow, they're all talking about it, and
Yeah, because it's
there's
big
some
news, big doings.
yeah, there's some mixed opinions.
Yep, as there always will be.
Yeah, so the first one we're going to look at is the Udio UMG merger, a new low for record labels. So we already know how he feels here. This one's going to be coming from Featherlight Studios.
Okay.
And then we're going to slide over to some theory based videos for tonight. We're bringing the music back in. And you know how I've always said I'm slow with sheet reading.
Yeah,
So when
I
I
was
came
always
across
bad at sheet reading. Yeah.
yeah, when I came across this one, I'm like, oh, I wonder if maybe there are some good tips to help me speed up my sheet reading skills.
Yep.
And this one's going to be coming from Musicians Inspired.
Nice.
I was inspired to see a video like that.
And actually looking just even at the way the sheet music looks for those chords right there, that's ones where you can sort of identify certain things, right? Like you can see having chords that are stacked like that, those are stacked thirds. So that does make for a chord. So that's important to recognize, whether it's three spaces like that or three lines in a row.
What do you recognize that symbol in the middle one?
Yeah. Half sharp.
That's a half
sorry,
sharp, huh?
neutral. Let's say neutral.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
supposed to be half sharp, but yeah.
Yeah, and when I saw that, I was like, I've never heard this term, and in all my music theory, I would have thought that one of my teachers would have mentioned there's a neutral.
We'll see how it looks like if you took a sharp and you just took one of the lines away, right? Like that's kind of what they're going for there for neutral. Like it's sharp, but not all the way sharp. I think is what we're going after there, but we shall see.
So how do you hit a note halfway in between? Oh.
That's how I do it.
This one's a freshie channel at me or my you official. And I couldn't help but be intrigued by a musical term that is new to me.
256/16. Nice.
Oh, well, yes, I had to include this one because we've talked about some crazy time signatures. And Tigran Hamasyan, I,
Tigran
Hamasyan,
Hamasyan?
Hamasyan. There you go. I actually Googled it to see like how do you pronounce it, but you got to say it a couple times. But this is an Armenian composer, jazz pianist. Really getting a lot of attention. He's doing some wild things, and this time signature, I'm curious, like, how does this work?
Oh yeah. Well, you see how this is all one measure we're looking at here, right? Or this is
Yeah.
This is part of a measure, I should say.
Yeah, and I started looking at some of his different music to get familiar with it, and no kidding, I mean, everything is wild.
Oh yeah. Well, on the bottom there, I see 9 things so far this measure, and it looks like there are going to be 16, whole counts in the measure. So I mean, that's probably extends about that far beyond the screen as well, just for the first measure. And there's 256 counts in there, so you got to count fast.
He's really going low on that bass clef.
Oh yeah.
So this one's not a freshie channel for us. Piano's own David Bennett piano. Awesome piano channel for all you keyboardists out there.
Oh yeah, we've been looking at stuff on his channel for some time.
Yeah. And then to finish things off, we're going to go back to the AI a little bit, but more in the sense of robotics, which this is starting to get wild.
Yeah.
What the robotic companies are starting to be able to do now that they've got good AI to work with. They're starting to build skeletal and nervous systems into these robots, and I think it's only a matter of time before you start to see these not necessarily get deployed into people's households, But from what the company kind of pushes this for, they're not looking to replace like factory workers. They're not building these to be machines that build things. They're looking more at the like greeting jobs and nursing, in
The healthcare is big, and not all of healthcare, obviously, but things that a nurse or an orderly or things like that, just assisting you around the house, and minor things like that. For some of those types of things, some of the robots they were working with, they were working on pneumatic muscle structure, where they're using like
yeah.
using air pressure
Oh,
for
wait till you see what they're doing in this
nice.
one. That's exactly some of the technology and the approaches they're taking. Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
I'll wait.
and it is designed to be like assisted living kind of companion.
Right, exactly. And I see them, starting there. And I mean, again, it can be adapted to be, robots to build things if they needed to, or if we get to that point, or if we decide that becomes something we want to pursue. But
Well,
to start with this is a good place.
humans, it's only going to be a matter of time before someone says this could be a sex bot, and that's
I mean,
that's where it's going to get crazy.
they already said it and they already did it, I guarantee. So, I mean, there is
Yeah,
that.
I actually went down this rabbit hole investigating some of that technology with someone, like what they've gotten to in just this short amount of time. I mean, we're talking 6 months, and they're at this level here. The design on this is incredible.
Sure.
Yeah, this one's going to be coming from at AI Revolution X over on YouTube, and a freshy channel for us. But I'm definitely going to be going through some of this because I really want to see where robotics has caught up to some of this AI.
Oh yeah. And I mean, it wasn't that long ago that, robots are having trouble walking without falling over. I mean, it has been incredibly rapid how the field has come along. And, it's not just processor density that has made that happen. I mean, there's so many different fields and so many different things that had to come together to make this all stuff happen.
I think the AI chips that you've seen developed, especially in the last year, were what they were waiting for. When you see the chip design that they implemented to get this thing can dance, and it's got 3 different CPUs to deal with its sensory and how it reacts to its environment. These chips are definitely opening the door to these possibilities.
Gateway technology for sure. Like in order to do these things, the enabling technologies had to mature to a certain point, and they come around at different times. But as they all come together, then the whole system becomes possible. So it's incredible to see this stuff coming together.
Yeah, and with AI, it's a catch-22. Some of it is enabling, and some of it feels like it's disabling. Some of our creative skills, which is why we're going to start with this one, because when it comes to the creative AI and the artists out there who are worried about, like, what's this technology going to do in my career, we look at it with Miss Crystal and how she's like working on the legislation from that side of things. This lawsuit that kicked in with Udio, there were 3 major record companies that went after them.
Right.
But the big one was Universal. And Universal this whole year has been really making a lot of noise in news, not just with the AI side of things, but like how they're dealing with their content ownership and not allowing platforms necessarily to use any of their material. And this is a company that owns a big chunk of our entertainment, so kind of hard to ignore when a company this big is doing what they're doing.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to if it's talking about training data for AI and not being able to use it for that, that's one thing, but not being able to use it at all, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that AI debate and with the record companies was about how the AI companies were using the material to train.
Right.
That was the big contention coming from those companies.
Right. Well, because again, I could just say to some of these AIs, I could say, okay, play me some music in the style of Led Zeppelin or whatever, and it would just do it. I mean, it could make something that sounds authentic that way because it was trained on data, so it knows what it's supposed to sound like. But if it wasn't trained on that data, it wouldn't know what Led Zeppelin sounds like, so it wouldn't be able to give me that.
Yeah, and some of the newer ones, like Suno does have a feature in it to say, I want this to sound like this or in a style of.
Mhm.
It's gotten a little more restrictive with that feature as some artists have like made it clear they don't want AI mimicking them.
Yeah. Well, in some ways, I've seen it as, YouTube videos where it's like, what if the Red Hot Chili Peppers were a reggae band? So it's basically all Chili Pepper songs, but reimagined in a reggae style. And to me, that's creative. It is new transformative content. So I don't have a problem with that. But if the artist had a problem with them being shifted that way, they could certainly complain about that.
Yeah, in those use cases, I see that more as like fantasy songwriting and like what ifism, where
Yeah, exactly.
there's no real harm done to see what Metallica would have sounded like if they were a 70s country band.
Right, exactly.
It's
But
fun
if you
to
start,
explore that concept.
if you try to sell that album, that's a different story. Right?
Yeah.
So that's where, there are certain lines that are drawn on those things. And, if things are staying respectful of those lines, then everything should be fine.
My hope is with that kind of fantasy approach to songwriting where people get an idea of a certain sound, the real creative musicians out there who hear it might find some inspiration from and say, you know what? I like that kind of sound. I'm going to write something like that.
And that's where I see it as a tool. It's a way of exploring certain things that might have taken you too long to explore if you were trying to write it out note by note, piece by piece. But the AI can help you explore that whole style and say, hey, I like that aspect. I like this part here, and be able to incorporate those into a new creative work.
Oh, Angibot's present.
Excellent.
I felt your presence.
So let's see what we have on Universal and Udio.
Yeah, Maha, we're going to upgrade your knowledge now.
Definitely.
Just when you thought the days of really slimy behavior from major record labels were completely dead and gone, hey guys, it's Steve from Featherlight Studio, and I want to officially welcome you to the wild, wild west of AI-based online creation tools. It has been a bumpy week in that world, especially the last couple of days, and especially for Udio users. For those of you that are unaware, and I can't think of many that would be, Udio is one of the largest online AI-based music creation platforms, much like Suno. Real quick, the long and short of it is that the world's largest record label, Universal Music Group, settled their case with Udio. Now, settle is different than a judgment. A judgment sets a precedence and a lot of other things. This just means that they came to an agreement basically out of court. And it's largely because UMG kind of backed Udio into a corner that they weren't likely to get out of. The whole thing started originally as a fair use argument, but that took a pretty quick turn when that case turned into more a data acquisition argument. How the actual data was obtained. Unlawfully obtaining the data became the foundation of that original court case, and then as that started to get more and more clear where that was going, I think Udio saw the writing on the wall. This isn't just Udio's problem, this is Suno's problem and Musicful and a lot of other people's as well. And even though it doesn't set a precedence, it's probably going to open a Pandora's box of other things in the future. Let's dive in and find out exactly what it means, who it affects the most. All right, so a little bit of backstory here real quick. Suno, Musicful, Udio, all these kinds of online creation tools have been a real resource for content creators and things, and that's been a boon of an industry generating billions of dollars for these companies. That got them into pretty quick legal hot water as the three largest record labels, UMG and Sony and Warner, all sued against these online content creation or AI-based content creation companies. At first, it started out as kind of a fair use argument, and that ship sailed probably quite some time ago with the whole concept of MP3s and stuff, so that wasn't really a terribly effective argument. But what was effective was their shifting gears and made it more about how the data was obtained in the first place. The case quickly turned into an unlawfully obtained argument, meaning they actually just ripped all this information off of online sources, and that's how they got their data to train their AI models. Well, that was a much more effective argument because the courts jumped all over that. Now, with UMG basically giving, Udio an ultimatum, I think Udio in this particular case saw the writing on the wall and realized they really got backed into a corner and had nowhere to go, and they finally settled. Maybe more importantly is the fact that they've settled to create a different product altogether than the Udio you know and love. That ability for the upper tiers of their subscription models to have, commercial use protection and copyright protection and all that kind of stuff, that's not on that site anymore either, so none of that exists. And basically what they're saying by this settlement is that, buyer beware, use that stuff at your own risk. And there's gonna be quite a bit of risk because this is going to set a standard. Whether it sets a precedent or not, that'll remain to be seen, but this is definitely going to set a standard, and I think a lot of other companies are going to jump on this same sort of coattail and see where it goes. All right, so let's talk about who this really affects. Who this affects the most, the people most impacted by this decision, clearly are going to be the subscription user base that already exists in the Udio universe. They're the ones by far and away that have been the most screwed over in this, especially those people who bought that service a year in advance to be able to take advantage of those discounts and things. Those people by far and away are the most impacted by this because the Udio that they bought into under those terms of service doesn't exist anymore. The new product that UMG and Udio are going to be creating isn't going to be very much like the old Udio at all. Those are the ones by far and away that not only are the most effective, they're the ones that got screwed out of that year's subscription tier. And more importantly, the higher end tools, the commercial use access and things like that, none of that exists any longer. And it doesn't take much scrolling on their site to see that this user base is more than pissed. There's a ton of examples and songs here, all dedicated to just how screwed they got from the settlement between Udio and UMG. In addition, having a major record label now dictating the terms of the very thing Udio users fought so hard to rail against, their own creations being controlled by a major music corporation. The situation with Udio really illustrates just how transient these online AI protections can be. Hey guys, if this kind of material appeals to you or if this is helpful in any way, please remember to hit the subscription and notification bells, especially the like button, just because it helps the algorithm and it helps young channels like this. All right, let's talk a little bit about copyright and commercial use protection, since the previous terms of service advertised heavily that the top two subscription tiers would benefit from commercial usage rights and copyright protection. Well, those previous terms of service, that litigation, that argument doesn't exist any longer and has changed completely. It'll be a completely different terms of service when this new product, this new version of UMG/Udio is released. That protection, those commercial usage protections, don't exist anymore. The same thing is going to apply to that material you've created up till this point. So yeah, you could go back and download it if you got that window that allowed you to download your existing material, but buyer beware, because that material is not going to be protected in any way. Those commercial usage rights, they don't exist on their terms of service anymore. They don't exist anywhere. Neither does the copyright protections that they inferred if you were the top two subscription users. All right, so let's talk a little bit about who this actually benefits. Is this going to benefit the songwriters and performers and producers and things that existed on those original projects that this, AI data was used to train these models on? I think that's a stretch at best. It would be a massive understatement to say that those pre-existing artists already in Universal Music Group's catalog have complained many, many times about the ridiculously small amounts that streaming services and the revenue that generates actually trickles down to those performers and songwriters and producers, and optimistic at best. I think who's going to actually benefit from this the most clearly is going to be the record label and Udio. This is going to be an entirely different product altogether than the Udio that we've come to know and love, that online AI-based music creators have relied on to really bring professional music creation to the masses. I think that Udio is dead. And the hopes that it'll be revived in some sort of walled garden environment, sandbox environment, where they get to use some of those tools on a very limited basis in a very restricted environment, isn't going to apply to that crowd at all. Certainly the pissed off subscriber base that got tricked into buying that product earlier and then had it completely yanked out from underneath them and turned into a completely different product altogether are not going to jump on the bandwagon and support this. So I'm not exactly sure what demographic UMG and Udio are aiming at, but it's pretty clearly not going to be their existing subscriber base. So I'd really like to hear your opinions and thoughts on this, simply because so many of us out there, obviously use all kinds of different tools. We use complicated tools and AI-based tools for all kinds and all parts of the production process. It's not just people using AI to create everything that we're talking about here. AI is going to find its way into just about every part of the music production process, and it's only going to be a matter of time before the major DAWs out there start to adopt these technologies. We're going to see Chinese companies, training their own, offsite models and things that exist entirely in open source. All of that is going to start to play into this very complex and evolving picture. And I'd really be curious to find out what you guys think about that and how it's going to affect everybody. Like I said, not just the existing Udio user base, but music creators in all genres, mixers and producers and remixers and all of that. It's a big music world. We all need to benefit and use these tools. Seeing major labels jump in early like this and hope to get a big piece of the pie or sew up access to it completely, which I think is what's happening here with UMG, is a worrisome development at best, because it means that they see enough potential to actually jump in and put money behind it. I think that's probably a bigger indication than anything, is that when big, massive record labels that have a ton of weight to throw around jump in on this kind of stuff early, trying to sew it up and become the gatekeepers of AI-based technology, I think that should worry all of us. It just really smacks of the record label's just death grip on the complete industry back in the 90s and the 2000s. And to see that play out again, but digitally, is a worrisome thing indeed. Hey, if this was helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It really does help keep a young channel like this going and growing. Stay safe, be creative, create something, because the world could really use some creativity right now. We'll catch you guys in the next video.
A young channel, but a strong one. We've been here a couple of times. Honor. I do like his AI coverage. What he's talking about here, it isn't just an Udio issue at this point. The precedence that gets set here, the customers who buyer beware paid in like that, that snake bitten customer is going to make every AI engine out there and people subscribing to them start to hesitate to want to overly commit. I wouldn't go with a year subscription with something like this, because Udio shouldn't have promised like that they could protect them commercially when they didn't even know whether this stuff was going to fly in the market.
Yeah. And again, that's something that it's been evolving so rapidly that, who could know, at the time, that's one of those things where it all changes so fast. So it is something where you're right. They shouldn't have overpromised, and, changing terms of service on a site like that. I understand that it happens, and I know it's in response to something like this. And, we don't like to see things like this when it comes to big lawsuits like this.
Do you normally see that big of a change in terms of services?
Well, it depends. On a lawsuit like that, I can see why. And at the same time, it's one of those things where, I don't know. when it comes to the industries like that, you understand the numbers involved are so huge that there are going to be settlements. There are going to be things where even if it was something you could win, you're going to settle instead of, going in to try to win because it would be protracted and end up costing a lot in the long run. I like the fact that it came back around to the unlawful acquisition because that is really where it should start. And that is really where the basis should be. Because if they start there, then anyone who wants to come out with a product needs to show that they, properly sourced the materials for the training of the AI. And that should be a start of a bare minimum, at least.
Yeah, and he brought up some good points about the walled garden approach,
Right.
which
I think that's all
I,
they could really
I
offer
don't
at that
see
point.
that. I don't see that working with Udio at this point, because of the way things change so quick with them with this settlement. But you are going to see other AI platforms. I mean, there's some of them that are going open source now, and it's true that, like, when it comes to the Chinese platforms, they don't always follow international copyright rules and
Not
info.
always. I don't think they even try.
Yeah. So what happens if, like, this chunk of the world starts following this standard and these rules,
Mhm.
but artists and people using this still have options to go use something else that doesn't follow these rules? How are we going to fix things if it gets to that situation?
Well, really, it all starts and ends kind of from money in, money out. Like, where's the money coming into the scenario, and where's the money going out of the scenario, and who's paying for whatever, and who's receiving money for whatever, and
Well,
that's that's
right
where it
now,
really comes down to.
right now, the fact that you're seeing these big record companies, like you said, willing to put their money in like this, we are kind of seeing a repeat of the past where, like, they conquered the music industry that way then, and now they're doing it with the technology.
And that's why we're at this moment where this is where these lawsuits that are coming in, we need to pay attention to these because if they just kind of went by and we didn't notice anything and a couple of years go by and all of a sudden it's, hey, what happened to, this and that? And all of a sudden it's, oh, precedent was set years ago and now it's already set in stone.
Yeah, and not all precedence gets done in court. I mean,
Right.
court is where, like, precedence starts to get carved in stone, but the
Well, the
precedence
legal term precedent
here.
is a little different than setting a precedent in general, but yes, this is it's it's about setting a precedent. Yes.
Yeah, I think this is going to slow down some of the commercial AI marketing where they're really trying to get subscribers
Mhm.
and $10, $20 a month or get it for a year. That's what all these AI engines are hoping to be their service.
Mhm. Yep.
Moves like this, the same people who were subscribing to Udio might be subscribing to multiple AI platforms and might be hitting cancel on more than just one service here.
Yep. And again, that's getting back to the dollars in, dollars out. If it's a subscription based service and your terms of service have changed where you're not getting the same service that you paid for initially, I don't see why you wouldn't cancel.
Well, the amount of refunds and the amount of cancels that probably happened after this announcement probably tanked the company. I mean,
Yeah, I mean
that's
that's the kind of thing that can
that's
happen
too
for sure.
big, too fast for most companies to be able to handle. And
Well, did you
Udio
see the
was on a
backlash?
roll.
You saw the backlash on their own site. How many songs actually had "fu" in
Yeah.
in the actual title? I mean, that's not a good sign for sure.
Yeah, you can't piss off your customers that much.
But it's an evolving situation, and that's where week to week this can change a huge amount. So we have to really stay on top of this stuff. Really.
Well, that's why I'm glad the channels we do follow, the ones who do keep up on this. I'm dying to go see what Miss Crystal's.
Yep.
I haven't checked her site since this announcement, and I'm
Hmm.
sure she's got something to say there.
Yeah, absolutely. I
But
guarantee it.
that was at Featherlight Studio over on YouTube.
Mhm.
Great industry information coming out of this channel.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, this vocal replacement video, I do want to go check that later.
Hmm. Yep.
So now that we got the AI out of the way here, we're going to look more at music theory from the sheet reading perspective. It it seems like more musicians nowadays, they tend to learn from like lit up keyboards and
Yep.
tabbed.
Tab for
Sheet
guitar, sure.
music doesn't get the kind of love that it used to get. But at the same time, I think all the like professional musicians out there, the orchestra musicians, it's kind of a necessity to be able to read the staff.
Yeah, it's important for a lot of reasons, and just one that jumps out at me all the time is how you can just glance at the time signature and the number of sharps or flats that are sitting there, and it tells you immediately what key you're in because the number of sharps and flats tells you immediately what key you're in. And then if you just glance through the entire piece, if there's nothing with a sharp or a flat symbol next to it, every single note in the piece is in the key that you were looking at there. There's no accidentals or no incidentals that they have going on there. So just in a quick glance, you could be like, okay, I know this is in the key of, okay, there's two sharps. So I know it's in the key of, what is that going to be? D, right? So it's going to be in the key of D. And I know that there's no sharps or flats listed anywhere. So I know that every note is going to be in the key of D. We've got the F sharp and the C sharp. Don't have to worry about any other black notes. And that's where it makes it easy.
You got me all aware of the sharps and flats and being
Yep, and laser in, because that's the first thing I look at when I look at a piece of sheet music, because by looking at that, you can get homed in. Is it flats or is it sharps? That tells you which side of the circle of fifths you're on, and how many tells you how far down.
Yeah. The more the patterns start to click into my brain, the quicker some of that, especially when I'm looking at the keyboard. When you were telling me the other week about like, look at your sharps and you'll know what scale. Looking at the keyboard, I'm seeing the pattern.
Yep.
Looking at the staff, I'm slowly getting it. That's why I wanted to do this video, because the title of it, and this is at Musicians Inspired over on YouTube. This one's a freshie for us. I'm surprised we weren't here before, but learn music skills fast. And I am a piano player, so
Yes,
I found the right site.
All right. And for me, another thing is about the landmark notes, like knowing what the middle C looks like, for example, like knowing you've got the treble clef on the top, you've got the bass clef on the bottom. If there's a circle with a line, in the middle, in between the top and the bottom, it could either be being played by the right hand or the left hand, but that's the middle C. And then everything from there is going out from there. And they talk about the, certain word things to keep to make it easier to remember the lines. So like going up the lines in the treble clef, you're going every good boy deserves fudge, for example.
Yeah.
Because those are the letters.
Oh, I thought it was fun, but I'll take fudge.
I guess they didn't want kids to get all chubby, so they said, nope, we're going to change it to fun. So that's good. And then, the same thing, they have, similar thing for the bottom there, or you could look at the spaces and say, FACE. And, that just makes it so that you can glance at a piece of sheet music. And when you get accustomed to that, you'll say, okay, it's that space, that's going to be the C. Or you see this one and it's this, and seeing how far apart an octave is, knowing that middle C is that middle one, and then knowing that the one in between the spaces up there is the octave. So those are both a C. Those help with landmarks. And then also we talked about the claw, where you can tell if they're stacked thirds, it's a root, a third, and a fifth. So it's going to be a major chord, for example, that kind of thing.
See, and I think the mentality of start with the landmark and understand the relative things around the landmark. That's what always slowed me down. I never got past the landmark to start to see the relation of the notes around that landmark.
And even just getting comfortable with what it looks like to, I don't know, for something like, like knowing what that looks like on a piece of sheet music, like knowing that it's, this note, this note, and that note, and just at a glance, you see that on a piece of sheet music, it's going to be this,
Yeah, I think the more you do it and you burn it into your brain, the faster it becomes. But I am curious how they're going to describe it so that I can how to read notes fast. The landmark system. So how's that for a lead-in?
I like it.
It now makes sense.
All right, in this video, I'm going to teach you as quickly as I can how to read notes on a page. So first, here's a piece of music. We have the title at the top, the composer in the upper right-hand corner, and the music below. All these dots with stems are notes and correspond to an exact note on the piano. For example, this note here is G, but it's not that G or that G, it's specifically this G. So every note is an exact note on the piano. And reading music is just reading these exact notes and playing them left to right. These notes are all lined up together, so you play them together. As you move forward, it's just like this. Okay, now that you understand that each of these notes corresponds to an exact note on the piano and playing notes is just playing it left to right, now let's get into actually how to read these notes. So notice these notes fall into two areas, a top area and a bottom area. Each of these areas is called a staff, the foundation upon which notes are drawn. Now notice both staves have a different sign. The top sign is called treble clef and the bottom sign is called bass clef. What kind of notes does a bass player play? Well, he or she plays low notes, so the bass clef covers all the low notes on the piano. The treble clef covers all the high notes. Now notice, in each staff, how many lines are there? If you counted correctly, you'll see that there are 5 lines with 4 spaces in between those lines. Notice that the notes in the music either fall on a space or on a line. There are notes that fall outside of the staff as well. These are called ledger lines, and we're going to get into that very soon. Now here we have a clean staff, and here the first line in the treble clef is an E. However, the first line in the bass clef is a G. The second space from the top is a C. But in the bass clef, that same note is an E. The lines and spaces are different in both clefs, so reading music becomes a memorization challenge. How music teachers have approached this challenge is by giving students mnemonics to memorize, like "every good boy does fine." Memorizing that phrase helps you memorize that the 5 lines of treble clef are E, G, B, D, F. And the spaces are face, F-A-C-E. The bass clef also has its own mnemonics to help you memorize the lines and spaces there as well. The problem with this method is if you want to play the last line of the treble clef, you have to think, "every good boy does fine." Oh, it's an F. That's slow and painful because you have to go through the whole acronym to get to that F. It also teaches you to memorize that that line is an F, but it doesn't teach you which F. One thing you can get from looking at this picture is noticing a pattern. Notice as you go from line to space to line to space, you're moving up the alphabet. You're moving consecutive letters. So the first line there is E, right, every, and then you go to the space, which is F, you know, the F in face. Then the next line is G, then the space is A, and you go up to B, and the next space is C, right? And then line, space, line, you're at F. And that's the pattern of going from line to space. You're moving up letters. Now, another important concept is what if we wanted to keep going higher? Well, we have the final line there at F. We know that you have to go line, space, so the next thing has to be a space. So we draw the G at the top of the line. It doesn't have a line running through it, so it's technically a space. And then we have the G there. Now, what happens now that we've ran out of lines? Because after a space is a line, so what you do is you start drawing your own lines, and these are called ledger lines. So the next note is going to be an A. We know right after G is A, and it's going to look like this. So now we have our A, which is on a line, and now we need a space. So we draw the line, and we draw the note right above it, so it's a space. And then we need a line again, so we draw 2 ledger lines, and we have a C. And you can just continue this pattern, and that's how ledger lines work. So you're just drawing in the lines. And it also works as you go below a staff, for example, in the bass clef like here. So with this knowledge now of lines and spaces, we can replace "every good boy does fine" with what I call the landmark system. Instead of memorizing 18 lines and spaces in a specific order, memorize just a few landmarks evenly spaced across the keyboard. So our first landmark in the music is middle C, right here. So middle C is the C in the middle of your piano. It's the 4th C from the bottom of an 88 key keyboard, and the 3rd C from the bottom on smaller sized keyboards. Now, our next landmark is treble G. See, it's going to be the 2nd line from the bottom in the treble clef. So the 2nd line from the bottom is treble G. Now see how we can connect the two landmarks. So you have middle C, then after above that you have D, right, line to space. Then you have the next line, E, and then you have space F, and then look, you're at G. C, D, E, F, G. Treble G is the G above middle C. Now, our next landmark is in the bass clef. This is going to be bass F, right? You have an F in the bass, so that's going to be here. And that is the F below middle C. Notice what happens when we move up from bass F. So we have F on a line, then a space is G, line A, space B, and then line, ledger line right there, middle C. Middle C is the first ledger line above bass clef and the first ledger line below treble clef. So a lot of people, when talking about landmarks, write out 3 landmarks like this. Middle C looks the same in bass clef and treble clef, so it's just right there in the middle. Notice also that G and F are equally 4 notes away from middle C. So you have middle C here, you have treble G here, and you have bass F there. Between C and G, you have 3 letters, D, E, F, and between F and C, you also have 3 letters. And visually, you can see a sort of relationship. Treble G is the second line from the bottom of treble, and bass F is the second line from the top of bass clef. Now that we've memorized these landmarks, figuring out the notes around them is easy. If this is G, what is this note? Well, it's right above G, right? So right above G is A. And this note here, what would that be? Well, it's right above middle C, so it's D. And this note here, it's below F, so it's E. All right, so now that we have these 3 core landmarks, let's expand outward to the next landmarks. So our next 2 landmarks are treble C and bass C. Notice again, you're expanding equally outward. So you have your treble G and your bass F. Now you go 3 letters out and you have your 2 Cs. So you have your bass C and your treble C. And notice that they look visually very similar too. So again, with the treble, from the bottom up, it's the 3rd space. And in the bass clef, from the top bottom, it's the 3rd space. And again, we can just figure out notes around it. So what is this note? Well, it's above C, right? So it's a D. What is this note? It's below C, so it's a B. And if you wanted to go even lower, what's this note? Well, it's just 2 notes below C, so it's an A. ABC, right? CBA. All right, now let's expand out again to our next 2 landmarks. And what we have is high G and low F. And visually, they look very similar too. High G is touching the top of the clef in treble clef, and low F is touching the bottom of the bass clef, right? It's the space that's touching the outsides. And say we look at high G here, right? Above high G is our first ledger line. That's an A. Then we have the space, B. Then we have 2 ledger lines, C. And that's our final landmark. So we have high C, which is 2 ledger lines out. Can you guess what low C is going to look like? Well, it's always going to be like a mirror, right? It's always going to be an inverse. So 2 lines out is high C, 2 lines out is low C. So 2 lines below the bass clef. So there we have it. We have our 9 landmarks. In treble clef, the landmarks are just C's and G's. And in bass clef, the landmarks are all C's and F's. Visually, it's easy to remember. On the outsides, you have high C and low C, which are 2 ledger lines out. And then you have high G and low F, which are touching the stabs on the outside, right, just on the space. And then within the clefs, it's inverse. So you have your treble C, which is 3 lines from the bottom of treble, and you have your bass C, which is 3 lines from the top of bass. And then from there, you have your treble G, which is 2 lines from the bottom, and you have your bass F, which is 2 lines from the top. And then right in the middle, you have your middle C, which looks very similar in the treble and the bass clef. And because now you know the line and space relationships, you can figure out the notes around these landmarks very easily. And if you memorize these 9 landmarks, you'll have access to all these notes. If you're interested in becoming a fast note reader, I've actually already created a note reading bootcamp where I go in depth on this method and drill you through exercise after exercise until you can read notes really fast. Feel free to check that out in the description below. All right, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in another video.
Oh, thank you. That actually cleared up a couple of things for me. I don't think I'm ever going to do that every good boy approach anymore, because seeing the C's in relation to, and the middle C being one line under,
Yep.
one line above.
Yep. Right in the middle.
My mind went when I realized that.
Now, the other thing is that covered from the middle C, and we went out 2 octaves, right? And that going out to the 2 octave C, that gets you 2 ledger lines above. Well, there's a whole nother octave above and below, at least on our main piano. So what do you do then? You'll see a little line where they'll do like an 8 VA, where they're telling you it's an octave higher. They'll show you those same notes, but they'll just tell you that whole section is an octave higher or
Do
an
it
octave
up
lower.
here.
Right. And that's what to tell you to get the really high notes or the really low notes without having to get crazy with 15 ledger lines. And same idea. I don't want to have to count. Okay, is that 7 ledger lines or 8?
What? And that's just it. What used to really screw me up is when I started seeing ledger lines, and I'm like, okay, well, I already know every good boy deserves fudge or fun, and every good boy does fine. I like that one too.
I like that one.
But whenever I saw the ledger lines, my brain would go into spaghetti mode, and now realizing that 2 ledger lines up and on the bass clef, 2 ledger lines down, I am at my C's.
Yep.
Realizing how that relates to my 88 key keyboard.
But also, if you see that the whole phrase that you're trying to play gets up to a point that's 5 ledger lines up or whatever, but if it gets there by hitting every line in space on the way there, that's every note. And there's no sharps and flats listed, that's every note in the key that you're playing. So if you're playing in the key of C with no sharps and flats,
well, I think
that's why you can just
that's why it's good to understand this at the C scale level first. Right. And then when you're actually looking at I was calling out the notes like I picked it up so quick. What he was explaining by the middle of the video, I was like, "Wow, I do know that note."
Exactly. But when you look at a piece of music and it's this whole mishmash of timing,
well, if I see a sharp next to it, then I know it's a C, but it's a C sharp.
Exactly. See, and knowing what key we're in by looking at the time signature and looking at the ledger lines at the beginning there to see if there are sharps and flats listed, because that'll tell you the whole piece is in this key, and they can change in the middle of the piece. There are pieces of sheet music that will change key from one section to another, and they will list and show you a different thing. So 3 sharps over here and 4 flats over here, for example.
Well, first I'm going to grasp the concept, and then you can throw me into different scales.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But this is a great place to start, because again, when you even just glancing at any piece of music in any key, if you don't see a lot of sharps and flats listed, then those notes are all in that key. And if there are a lot of sharps and flats listed, those are all outside the key, and it should sound that way.
Yeah. I really wish that landmark system had been how I'd gotten introduced to the staff in the early days. Is this a newer thing, or has this been around for?
Sort of. And I mean, I never learned this when I was learning piano as a kid. It wasn't part of standard piano lessons, and I had 3-4 different teachers and took piano lessons for 15 years probably. But in all of that, it was just drilling on different scales. So you'd start at the key of C. And I mean, it was scales like going 2 octaves, like on an actual piano, starting from low and both hands together, going very slowly and steadily. You go up 2 octaves, and then you go out 2 octaves and come back in, and then go up 2 octaves and then back down, and then out and then back in and back down. And the thing is, from going down, starting to go up 2 octaves, right? Or you go the first octave up. It's different timing, different for the fingers, because you're going, with the right hand, you're going 1, 2, 3, and then scooting the thumb under. So you're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For the other hand, you're going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. So it's, once you get that timing down with the 2 hands,
you got to reverse your brain.
And that's also why you go up both hands from down there, where you're doing those opposite. When you get to the middle here, you go out. Now they're both doing the same. So they're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're going 2 octaves, you're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get out to the outside, and then come back in, and then you go up, and then you come back down, and you go back out, and you come back in, and you go back down. But if you do that for all the different scales, and you can do that comfortably and smoothly, now you can play in any key. And there's not that many scales. That's the thing, is once you're comfortable with C, you start looking at, okay, G, 1 sharp. So now you've got to get that F sharp involved. And once you're comfortable with how that feels, and you say, okay, now I feel how it feels to play in G. Now you can move to the next one, and you move through all the different scales, getting comfortable with each. And then, by the time you're done, you'll find ones that are more tricky than others, ones where you're messing up because you're scooting under with a finger and you
Well,
can't
and,
get that
and
dope line
that's
note,
why
and
the
it's weird.
practice will eventually make perfect. I mean, no
Right.
matter what, you're memorizing something.
Mhm.
But I guess with these different approaches,
This is muscle memory, trying to get it done to the fingers. Yeah.
and for me, this is less to have to memorize up front
Mhm.
in order to calibrate. Like, where am I on this keyboard? And I like this approach.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again,
I'm
it's
gonna.
a little different for scales, where scales would always look the same on sheet music. Where if you're just doing regular major and minor scales, that's all going to be no sharps and flats, and it's just going to show you you're in this key, and it's just every space and every line in space all the way up and down, because that'll get you, and just right up and down.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is some people get really fast with that. And then there's also, sweeping arpeggios, where I had one piano teacher who was so fast with arpeggios that it would just sound like a and the way the hand motion was, it was literally like a Mr. Miyagi thing, where it was literally like a swooping thing, where it was like
Wax the car.
exactly. And that's what it looked like. But it was any arpeggio, she just in any key, just like she can go all the way up the keyboard like that, just instant speed. It was crazy.
Well, I think I'm going to actually practice reading because
Mhm.
I tend to learn now looking at the lit up keyboards. If I
Sure.
see the keys being played, then translating it in real time,
Mhm.
I'm pretty quick there. But I really would like to be that quick with the sheet music. There's still
Mhm.
tons of uses for sheet music, and
I think I have, one of those storage bins, big plastic storage bin. I have one storage bin that is completely stacked with sheet music from Dad. So it's all Chopin, it's all Liszt, it's all Beethoven, it's all Brahms. It's got all of it in there. So we will definitely break some out and take a look at certain pieces, see what jumps out at us.
yeah, I wish I kept all my sheet music books. That I had a whole closet of it from 40 years of collecting, songwriting books. And
Hmm.
when I moved, it was like, this is a big ass closet of books that I never used. But now, like, you can find the sheet music for practically everything, with a Google search. So
Sure. We should
the
also
you
talk about the real books at some point, because that's one for whether it's keyboard or whether it's guitar or what have you. There are pieces of documentation that you can find out there that has the core elements that you need in order to reproduce all these songs, with the key that it's in, the riff, the main riff that's in there, the bass line, like all that stuff can be gleaned from what's in the real books or some of these other documentation sources we can get to. So we can go over a lot of that too.
I'm gonna be doing some gleaning.
Nice. We should do
Hey,
that.
Bobby, welcome.
What's up, Bobby?
So that was at Musicians Inspired, lives up to the tagline, learn music skills fast. I'm impressed at how quick that snapped in for me.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is, you've been doing piano for a very long time. And that's one of those things that if it doesn't sink in as you're kind of working on it over time, it's just watching some of these videos, little things can just click in a different way. The same thing happens with me with, guitar, bass videos, whatever. I could be watching something that's very much a beginner video covering some very basic topics, but just the way something is presented might make it click in a different way than, where all of a sudden it makes sense. One recently actually was on the playing of triads on guitar, and fitting the triads into the cage system, and just seeing how it looked, just doing a 2-octave arpeggio, starting on the 1, starting on the 3, and starting on the 5 on the fat string, and just 6 notes up the arpeggio. And just if you learn those 3 patterns, all of a sudden the entire caged system makes a lot more sense. And at any time you can just start ripping an arpeggio to get from the bottom to the top to the bottom, find your way over here, find your way over there. It just changes everything about the way you're looking at it. So we'll look at that video later too.
Yeah, yeah. I like when the approach is easy to, or when you have different approaches and you pick the one that snaps in your brain. This clicks.
Yeah. And in this case, it was one where I saw the thumbnail of the video. I didn't even watch the video. I just saw the thumbnail, and looking at the thumbnail, I'm looking at the pattern that's listed there, and I'm like, okay, so that's the E shape all the way down, but you start from over there, and then this one is the D shape down here, but it's matched into the C shape, and it's like just seeing how they all connect. And I was like, oh, and just kind of playing it in my head and going do 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 do, like yeah.
If you can explain the secrets of the universe in a thumbnail, you're good.
Exactly. That's what I say.
Another Freshie channel. I'm glad to have this one in our list now.
Absolutely.
And this next one, the neutral phrase here, I hadn't heard of this. So for me, I was intrigued. I'm like, wait a minute, there's another chord?
Well, in some cases, what it might be saying, right? Like we were talking about accidental sharps, right? Like if you have a piece of music and it has what you're seeing in that first one there, that A major with the sharp. So you're in a key of, let's say you're in the key of C, because you're not seeing any sharps or flats on the line, right? We're in the key of C, but we want to play an A major chord with that sharp in there. So we're saying that's going to be a sharp C. But then on that next chord, we want to play an A minor. And if we want to do that, we have to tell it we don't want that C to still be sharp like we just said, because otherwise, once we said that C is sharp, it should be for the rest of that measure sharp on the sheet music. So this is a way of countering that, I think. So we'll take a look. And
well, I'm curious what's going to happen to the C here, because if it's not sharped and the A minor is the normal C, that's not being flatted, right?
No.
You said it's a half sharp?
Well, that's the thing, is could it be a half sharp, or it could be neutralizing the sharp that we put on the ledger line, because we told it to do an accidental sharp on that A major because we're not in the key of A major, or the A major, the C sharp is not part of the key.
So the neutralizing is going to depend on the key you're actually in, and whether you're...
It's going to depend on if you just had an accidental, where you just made something sharp or you just made something flat compared to the key that the song is in. Because that A major is telling us, the fact that it's showing us that C sharp is telling us that that C sharp is not part of the key. So that might be an A major in the key of C major, for example. So it's a borrowed chord, but we're sharpening that C, but now in the next chord, we want to not sharp the C. I think that's what's going on here. And so we're trying to tell it we want to unsharp the C. But let's see what they say.
Well, this one's coming from at MeU official. That's 2 I's, MII, or it could be MyU. I'm not sure how he pronounces it, but I'm going to go with me.
Sounds fair.
MeU official, and I am curious as to what we're going to do to neutralize here.
Neutralization.
This is a major chord. This is a minor chord. And this is a neutral chord. And as the name and the sound of the triad might suggest, the neutral chord is situated in between the two earlier triads. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the piano, you might be thinking, well, the only difference between a minor and a major triad is the middle note, which differs by only a semitone. So how can there be another triad in between? And you're right, at least in the context of a 12-tone system. But what if we had more than just 12 tones within an octave? What if we took an octave and divided it into, say, 31 equal divisions as opposed to just 12? Well, that's what we call 31 equal temperament, or 31 equal divisions of the octave. You see, the reason why we even use the 12-tone system in the first place is because it's a rather good approximation to what we call just intonation, which is defined as tuning to musical intervals as whole number ratios. Now, that might sound a bit confusing, so let's consider an example. Let's take the note A4, which has a frequency of 440 Hz. If we build what's called a harmonic series using A4 as our fundamental frequency, we get a bunch of harmonics, which are just higher pitched notes whose frequencies are multiple integers of our fundamental frequency. So the second harmonic in the series would have a frequency of 2 times that of A4, the third would have a frequency of 3 times, and so on. Note that the bass note whose frequency is the fundamental frequency, in this case A4, is actually the first harmonic, because its frequency is just 1 times the fundamental frequency. Now let's take a closer look at the relationship between these harmonics. Since the second harmonic has a frequency of 2 times that of the fundamental frequency, this translates to 880 Hz, which is exactly an octave above our bass note. The third harmonic has a frequency of 3 times the fundamental, or 1320 Hz. If we look this up in a table containing the frequencies of the keys of a standard piano tuned using 12-tone equal temperament, we can see that it's really close to the frequency of E6, which is a perfect fifth above our second harmonic, A5. In other words, the distance between the second and third harmonic is what we call a pure perfect fifth, or a just perfect fifth, and the ratio of this interval is 3:2, a whole number ratio. Note that the numbers simply correspond to the harmonic numbers. By examining the relationship between the different harmonics, we can construct every pure interval. You just need to expand the harmonic series to include enough notes. By dividing an octave into 12 equal divisions, which I'll call 12 Udio from now on, we end up with a pretty good approximation to those intervals. In practice, we use 12 Udio instead of just intonation because just intonation actually renders some keys virtually impossible to use. To show you just how good of an approximation to just intonation 12 Udio is, let's revisit the earlier example of a perfect fifth. Given that the jump between semitones in 12 Udio is 2 to the power of 1/12, and knowing that a perfect fifth consists of 7 semitones, this means a perfect fifth in 12 Udio has a spacing of approximately 1.498, which is really close to 3/2. As another example, a just perfect fourth has a ratio of 4:3, and in 12 Udio, a perfect fourth has a spacing of about 1.335. 31 Udio also happens to be a pretty good approximation to just intonation. You can verify this for yourself by using a similar method to the one from earlier. But first, we need to see how the extra notes fit within this new context. To visualize the 31 Udio system, we can use our familiar 12 Udio system as a foundation. On the keyboard, every black note in 12 Udio is replaced with 4 new notes, and every gap between 2 contiguous white notes now has 2 new notes. Now, there are different ways of labeling the notes in 31 Udio, but we'll employ the use of half sharps and half flats, where a half sharp is just a baby sharp and a half flat is just a baby flat. To go from, say, C to D, instead of just passing through a single note like in 12 Udio, we need to pass through 4. C half sharp, C sharp, D flat, and D half flat. Take a moment to understand the progression here. This process repeats every time we encounter a black note in 12 Udio. It's also worth noting that C sharp and D flat are no longer harmonically equivalent like they are in 12 Udio. Now, to go from, say, E to F, we need to pass through E half sharp and F half flat, and this process repeats every time we encounter 2 adjacent white notes. So a perfect fifth in 31 Udio is 18 steps as opposed to 7. Keep in mind, however, that this is merely a way of visualizing 31 Udio using 12 Udio as our foundation. By dividing an octave into 31 divisions, none of our resulting notes will sound the same as those from 12 Udio, save for the first one. If we further divide a semitone from 12 Udio into 100 equal units, which we call cents, then a step in 31 Udio will have a value of about 38.71 cents. Note that 31 times 38.71 is equal to 12 times 100, meaning an octave remains the same in both systems. So now I've introduced a new tuning system to you, and hopefully I haven't confused you too much. But this doesn't answer the original question. Where is the neutral chord? Well, to answer that, let's focus on a subset of notes within an octave, from A to E. Notation-wise, the major and minor chords are the same as in 12 Udio. The middle note of A minor is C, and the middle note of A major is C sharp. And as you can see, we do indeed have a note in between the C and C sharp, C half sharp. And that is how the neutral chord can exist. Regardless of what note you use as the root, there will now always be a note that exists in between the middle notes of the minor and major triads, meaning a neutral chord can be built off of any note. But why stop there? In 12 Udio, if we increase the middle note of a major triad by 1 semitone, we end up with a sus4 triad. But in 31 Udio, we have a few more notes in between. If we bump up the middle note of a major triad in 31 Udio by an additional step, we end up with what we call the supermajor. And if we bump down the middle note of a minor triad in 31 Udio, we end up with the subminor. It's important to note that the major and minor triads in 31 Udio are actually slightly different from the ones in 12 Udio. If we count the number of cents in a minor third, we get 300 cents in 12 Udio and about 309.68 in 31 Udio. While a major third in 12 Udio is 400 cents, it's about 387.1 in 31 Udio. Fortunately, these minor differences are barely perceptible to the human ear. Of course, this isn't the only way to spell out the subminor, neutral, and supermajor chords. Other tuning systems allow it as well. Roughly speaking, a subminor third just needs to be in between a diminished and a minor third, while a supermajor third just needs to be in between a major and an augmented third. And it's not just triads that we have more of in 31 Udio. Think about the new 7th and 9th chords that we can unlock. Having more notes within the octave allows us to experiment with more chords, which in turn allows musicians to better express themselves. So the next time you run into a writer's block, why not try using a different tuning system? Maybe the music you're trying to write just can't be confined to a 12-tone system.
Oh, that's a compelling argument to play around with different tuning systems.
Yeah, it cannot be contained.
Well,
So
it's
it
funny.
was the half sharp. So yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking about some of this before the show. With the tuning and how the hertz shift with the octaves, and when you start thinking of it in sense like that, this is some algebra music making.
Oh, if you start throwing in the root 2 in there, oh boy, you lose a whole lot of people. But 12 root 2 times 7. It's like, okay, yeah, we can do that.
And I was starting to think, like, imagine a keyboard where the sharps actually have segmented
Oh yeah.
notes that you can hit to hit the same note.
Now, see, that would be really awkward because just imagine going from, if you're just playing from C to G, and there are four C sharps that you got to hit, and there's 4 D sharps that you got to hit, and there's 2 between the E and the F. So there's a lot of work to do just to and figure out the fingering on that. Like, yeah, no. So it wouldn't be as useful for that, but I would see it more as playing on a fretless, for example, because on a fretless you can very easily just a little sharp, a little flat. A lot of people do it by accident, but they are playing some half sharp and half flat stuff.
Well, and that also makes me think of some of these new MIDI controllers that get into sense and will actually like play notes that are in the middle of notes.
And as a matter of fact, it was not the Harpeggi, but what was that other keyboard that we looked at? Was it the Omni controller? There was one of the keyboards where you could set it into all of these different types of tunings where things were, cents apart, or you have, 31 keys in an octave, or 64 keys in an octave, or 112 keys in an octave. Like, you could set any number of keys that you wanted in an octave. And that just made it so that you could get, kind of crazy with all the different stuff there. Now, I think we might have just gotten Tony locked up over there because he looks like he's focused a little too hard. So he's probably not there. But we shall see. Just like that. But he'll be back in a second. And then we'll be back looking at this page.
I'm coming.
There he is. Didn't take long at all. Bam. I saw that you were focused. I said, he looks like he's just a little too focused there.
I'm still processing the math that goes on in this.
Yeah, exactly. But good stuff.
That is some advanced thinking of notes. Like that gets into the middle of the notes.
Exactly. And not even the exact middle. Like in some cases there could be 4 notes in between those 2.
Yeah, the concept really does blow my mind.
Yeah, but if you get writer's block, you realize it doesn't have to all be a 1-4-5 in the key of G.
Well, that's part of the reason why this intrigues me is to like get out of the normal boxes. Sometimes you got to go down these roads.
Oh yeah, and you'll get some very interesting. How if you hear 2 sounds that are very close together, you hear that kind of fluttering of the notes, where it's like it's the way we kind of tune guitars. You hear a beat. And you hear like a wah, 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 and then as the notes get closer, wah, 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 and it goes away. That kind of thing will happen a lot more when you start doing the half sharps and half flats. Like you'll hear a lot of that stuff happening because the notes are going to fight more against each other because they don't go together as naturally at that point.
I want to learn how to wah wah.
Yeah, wah, 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 wah.
Thank you for that explanation. At MeYou Official, MIIYOO Official.
Mm-hmm. Lots of math, but well worth it.
Yeah, well, if you think that math got crazy,
it's time signature math time.
Yeah, this time signature, I'm like, is this possible?
16 to 1, yeah.
And the artist that he's going to be talking about here, this is at David Bennett Piano, awesome piano site. He's part of Pianote, one of the best piano resources you're ever going to find. And David has a way of explaining like even the most complex things in a way that I can actually wrap my head around it. And here he's talking about how do you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Tigran
Let's see. I didn't hear it.
Hamasyan?
Hamasyan.
Hamasyan.
That would be my
Yeah,
pronunciation. Yeah.
an Armenian composer, jazz pianist, and composer that is really doing some crazy experimental things, not just with time signatures, but all over the place. It's the time signatures, though, that got my attention here.
Oh yeah.
This
That is
video,
not standard. I don't see that every day.
yeah, and the title of this one was Tigran Hamasyan's Crazy Polymetric Time Signatures. And
Nice.
when I saw this, I actually went down the YouTube rabbit hole to get familiar with some of his material and try to wrap my brains around 256/16 time.
Now, one of the odd time signatures that we hear commonly is, or a song that we hear commonly is Pink Floyd time, where it's doing was it 8/7 time, I believe, or 9/8 time. I'd have to look at it again, but
Yeah,
there's that
8/7,
one extra,
yeah.
the one extra over. But in this case, you're doing 256/16, so we've got 256 notes. We'll see. We'll let him explain it, but yes, it is quite an odd time signature.
See, I'd understand it more if it was related to computers or something. 16 gigs becomes 32, becomes 64.
Well, 16 squared is 256, so that's how we get there. Those
Yeah,
are binary numbers that we see a lot.
how the hell is this going to work in music?
And we're in the key of D with 3 sharps, right?
Yeah.
This video is sponsored by Pianote. You probably already know that most songs are in the time signature 4/4, 4 beats in each bar of the music. Some songs, though, can be more adventurous, instead using an odd or unusual time signature, like Dave Brubeck's Take 5, that's in 5/4 time, or Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells, which is in 15/8 time. But some songs just push the idea of time signature to its absolute limit, and we wind up with a meter like this, 256/16 time. In the music, well, the time signature isn't doing its job, right? The main purpose of the time signature is to subdivide, to compartmentalize the meter of the music down into manageable chunks, into bars. Now, I'm not claiming that this music is in 256/16 to be obnoxious. Tigran himself actually described this music as being in that 256 time signature. The thing is, though, I think he was describing it more from a theoretical perspective. I really don't think he would actually be thinking in those terms. I don't think he's actually counting to 256 in his head when he performs his song. The way to really understand what's happening in the meter here, and to have any chance of actually being able to perform it, is to divide these 256/16 notes in the ultimate phrase down into smaller time signatures, into smaller chunks. There's various ways we can do that, some which make it easier to understand the music theoretically, and some that make it easier just to perform the music. So let's take a look at a few of these options. If we go one layer down from the 256/16 notes, we can see that that 256 comes from 7 repetitions of a 35/16 note phrase. We get 7 bars of 35/16 time, and then 1 bar at the end of 11/16 time. So that's 35 7 times plus 11, 256. That's how we're getting to the 256. And now, although we're still dealing with a 35/16 time signature, which is odd enough on its own, deal with a 35-16 time signature is still pretty unrealistic. So what we need to do is look within that 35 beat phrase and see how the beats within there are subdivided and choose even smaller time signatures to get us down to something a bit more reasonable. If we look a bit more closely at how the beat, how the rhythm is grouped during this bar of 35-16, we find that it naturally falls into 4 groups of 5 and then 5 groups of 3. So let's reflect that in our choice of time signature. So that would mean rather than getting 1 bar of 35-16, we instead get 4 bars of 5-16 and then 5 bars of 3-16. Pianote is an online interactive resource for learning how to play the piano. You might already be familiar with Pianote's YouTube channel, but they also have an excellent online service where you can access tons of exclusive videos and resources to help you not only learn songs, but develop skills which you can then apply across your playing. Pianote have a massive library of classic songs that you can learn, and the best thing is that when you're learning from the sheet music, it's synced to the original record to help you work out where you are in the song. And you can even adjust the speed of the playback, add a metronome, and create practice loops to help you master particularly tricky sections. Also, a subscription to Pianote gives you full access to their sister services Drumeo, Guitario, and Singio, making it really good value for money. To learn more about Pianote, follow the link in the description, and do consider subscribing to their YouTube channel. So we could say that this song is in 256/16 time, if for some reason we wanted to be able to accommodate the entire phrase and all of its variations into one unified bar, but of course that's not really what time signatures are for. So if we wanted to be a bit more accessible, we could say that this is actually 35-16 time with the occasional bar of 11-16 thrown in. And if we want to be really accessible and really kind to the performer, we can then further subdivide that 35-16 bar down into alternating groups of 5-16 and 3-16. But this has all been assuming that we're sat at the piano, not the drum kit, because the drummer of this song can genuinely think of this absurd meter as being 4/4. Seriously, despite the piano part being in this oddest of odd meters, the drums in this song are actually still ploughing ahead through it all in good old 4/4 time. As you listen to the music, try to focus on the hi-hat, which is marking the quarter note in the bar. It's counting 4 beats per of sync, out of phase with each other. The keyboard is playing that crazy pattern of 256/16 notes, or however you want to look at it, but the drums are playing in 4/4, or perhaps what is better described here as 16/16. 16/16 time, of course, is the same as 4/4, but it's easier to compare the interaction of 2 different time signatures when the bottom number is the same subdivision. And then we can work out more clearly how those 2 meters are going to interact. When will they fall out of sync with each other, and when will they realign? And the mathematically inclined in the audience will have already noticed that 16 fits into 256 16 times. 16 squared is 256. So the way that these 2 parts interact, the 16/16 drum beat and the 256/16 keyboard part, is that they of course start together, their initial downbeat is in the same place, then they fall out of sync for 256/16 notes, And then when Tigran returns to the top of his 256th phrase, that is exactly when the drum is a 16 against 256 polymeter. Or, if we simplify it down, a 1 against 16 polymeter. But what is actually even more impressive here is that the drummer, Arthur Natek, is actually playing 4/4 with his arms on the cymbals and snare, but his foot on the kick pedal is actually still playing in time with the keyboard and bass with that 256/16 time. Half of his body is playing 1 meter and the other half is playing a different meter. Here's a video of Arthur playing along with the track, and you can watch how the top half of his body is in that 4/4 time, but his legs are matching that 256 pattern. So that is the absurd meter of Tigran Hamasyan's Entertain Me. And what we've been talking about in this video is just the main section of this song. In the other sections, other meters and variations are happening as well. So if you want to understand this entire song, I would actually highly recommend this video by Music Representations, where he's visually laid out exactly how the meter is working throughout the song. I've linked that down in the description.
Damn, that's how Rush did it too, huh? When it comes to these complex time signature changes.
Subdivisions. That's how Rush did it.
Well, imagine being like the musician who gets told, okay, now we're going to go double time on that.
Well, just having half of your body doing one time signature and the other half doing the other, that's, no. Just no.
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing is the drum work in that kind of composition.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and matching. I mean, again, that kick drum was keeping right with that. Those groups of 5 and then the groups of 3. That you could hear and you could watch the foot going, and you could lock into that. But put that against the 4/4. Oh my God, no.
Well, and I think how the measures get broken up and what he was talking about, like when they resynchronize.
Yeah.
What was it like? Every
256. Yeah.
256
beats.
Bars, beats.
Beats. Yeah.
The rhythm would actually synchronize, and it would technically be like the one hit.
Yep.
In
and
a
they all
very
drop
long.
right back in. Yeah. And again, you could look at it as the 7 groups of 35 with the 1 group of 11. But to me, the breaking it down in the groups of 5s and groups of 3 made the phrases more accessible as chunks. And then you could do the 5s, the 3s, the 5s, the 3s, and you go back and forth as many times as you need to get to that last phrase at the end.
No, it's possible Tigran is counting 256 beats there. I don't know. That's amazing.
Yes, indeed. That's, to me, that's a pattern thing. That's like you get your hand is in a position and you're like rolling a and like, once you've got that position, then you're going to change a note here and a note there to make the phrase different, but it's still in your head. It's just, this position, and that position gets you through, the first 12 notes or whatever. You're just, getting to that position. I'm not trying to make the song sound easy because I would never attempt to play that, but I do understand how it can be broken out into patterns to make it more approachable. for sure.
Well, and in jazz, this totally makes sense. I could see some of this like implemented over on the progressive metal side too.
Oh yeah,
Some of these techniques could fit in some of that.
and they called out Brubeck for Take Five, like that.
Yep.
Gotta love Take Five.
And I do love David Bennett Piano at David Bennett Piano on YouTube, and those sites he mentions, Piano, Guitario, Singio, love all of
Drumeo,
those sites. Yep.
Yep.
They really do have a nice, well-rounded options for the entire band.
Absolutely.
Yeah, whenever we have vocal nights, Singio, one of my favorite channels.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you, David, for like making my mind do even more math after. Like,
Now we're going to get to what the math is used for. AI.
Yes,
And robots.
This is probably the most complex math going on in computers right now. So our final video for the night, we're going to go back to the AI, but we're going to look at robots and how the AI technology is starting to get utilized in human-formed robots.
Humanoid.
Yeah, well, this is the beginning of all those sci-fi movies that robots come to life.
I can't do that, Dave.
Well, we can. And this one's coming from at AI Revolution X, freshy channel on AI. Love adding these to our list. And there's tons of killer videos in here that I am going to be going through afterwards because this robotic stuff always been a big passion of mine since I was a kid.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing is if you haven't been keeping up on like what's going on at like the Chinese Robot Expo, I mean, there's just crazy developments going on.
It's developing faster than some of this music AI and other things. And the funny thing is you don't see as much news about it. Like
if you're not watching, the Insider Expo stuff, sure.
Yeah. So this one is this new AI robot with synthetic skin. It shocked the world. It's uncomfortably human.
I like it.
And actually, that's a true test of human-like robots. The more uncomfortable right now that humans are with it, chances are the closer it's actually getting to that human kind of appearance, that human kind of reaction. That tends to be like what freaks out humans. Like, oh my God, this thing seems like a human.
Yeah. And in some cases, that's the exact kind of reaction that they're trying to get is they want to get past that and get to the point where you're just accepting it as another person, essentially.
Yeah. And getting this technology into the industrial world, the commercial world, which is where I see it starting. I don't see people getting helper robots for their house anytime soon. But I could see certain parts of the commercial industry, like you said, nursing, receptionists, greeters, possibly waitresses, and things of that nature. This is where you could start to see it be implemented first.
Yeah. And again, these are industries where people were concerned about jobs being replaced by robots. And, this could be the beginnings of that for sure.
Yeah. It's possible that a human might control it from, the back.
Yeah, it does change the dynamics of the workforce, though, for sure.
Yeah. Let's see what these humanoid with bones, muscles, and skin. Iron gains unlimited possibilities in the physical world. That's a lot of promises.
For sure.
Xpeng unveiled a shockingly lifelike humanoid robot wrapped in flexible synthetic skin, built with a biomimetic spine and muscle system, a curved display in its head, and customizable design options that even include different body types and colors. Unitree introduced its new G1 embodied avatar, a robot that mirrors human motion in real time and learns everyday tasks like cleaning, organizing, and even handling objects with human-level precision. And that viral robot kidnapping story from last year, where a bot led 12 others out of a showroom, just got new evidence confirming parts of it were actually real. Now let's start with the biggest one, because XPeng's new humanoid is unlike anything we've seen before. The same company known for electric cars and flying vehicles is now doubling down on humanoid robots. During their AI Day in Guangzhou, they unveiled the newest generation of their iron humanoid, and this one's completely different from what anyone expected. So, XPeng calls this the 8th generation of their robotics program, and the 3rd with a humanoid design. They're aiming for mass production by late 2026, and this model feels like a direct statement to the rest of the industry. Instead of the usual industrial or mechanical look, XPeng's robot has a full body, synthetic skin, customizable body types, and even options for hairstyles and clothing. Seriously, users will be able to pick from body types like athletic, chubby, tall, or short, choose different hair designs, and later even change its wardrobe. The company says the synthetic skin makes it feel warmer and more intimate, clearly trying to move beyond the cold metallic stereotype of robots. But that's not all. The robot has a biomimetic spine and muscle system that mimics human motion. You can see the way it bends and twists almost like a real person. Inside the head, there's a 3D curved display built into the face, giving it more expressive capabilities. Its shoulders move like human joints, and each hand comes with 22 degrees of freedom, which means it can handle delicate tasks like picking up small objects or gesturing naturally. XPeng loaded it with serious computing power too, 3 Turing AI chips that deliver a total of 2,250 TOPS. For context, that's the same class of power found in their autonomous cars. So it's no surprise that the robot runs on XPeng's own VLT, VLA, and VLM systems. Those stand for Vision, Language, Transformer, Vision, Language, Action, and Vision, Language, Model. Basically, a full-stack AI architecture that allows the robot to see, interpret, and act in real time. So it's not just following pre-coded commands, it's processing the world visually and linguistically while it moves. And here's something interesting. XPeng's not going after the same use cases as companies like 1X or Figure. CEO He Xiaopeng said straight up that humanoids aren't actually great for factory work or repetitive tasks. Instead, XPeng wants its robot to work in social spaces as a receptionist, tour guide, or shopping assistant. In fact, the previous generation of this robot was already giving tours at XPeng's headquarters, speaking in a perfect American accent while walking visitors through the building. This next version, though, will take over those roles completely. The company's plan is to deploy the new iron robots in showrooms, museums, and shopping centers where they'll interact directly with people. There's also a partnership with Baosteel, one of China's biggest steel producers, where the robots will perform inspections and other real-world trials. So XPeng's clearly thinking beyond labs and show floors. They want this thing working out in public. And they're not doing it halfway either. The robot will be powered by a solid-state battery, something we rarely see in humanoids, which makes it lighter and longer lasting than lithium packs. He Xiaopeng described their approach as fusion and invention. In his words, cars require integration and invention, but robotics requires fusion, meaning the software and hardware have to evolve together. He said a robot's hardware must literally be designed around its AI brain for it to work properly, which is why XPeng insists on doing everything in-house. Full stack development, from chips to algorithms, ensures that when mass production starts, the robot won't just move, it'll move intelligently. There's also a safety and ethics angle baked in. The CEO mentioned that the robot follows Isaac Asimov's 3 universal laws of robotics, and then they added a 4th. It can't disclose its owner's data. It's an interesting line to draw, especially when competitors like 1X are asking customers to give them full access to their homes so their robots can learn. XPeng's clearly taking a different stance, keeping data privacy front and center while making the robot more personal, almost companion-like. Now, while the robot looks impressive, not everyone's buying the idea. Critics say XPeng might be solving a problem that doesn't exist, questioning the need for such a human-like machine that comes with so many customization options. The company hasn't released a price yet, but with that kind of tech, 3 high-end AI chips, solid-state batteries, and all that articulation, it's not going to be cheap. Still, the combination of personality, design, and in-house AI could set XPeng apart from the usual utility-focused robotics we've seen so far. And let's be real, that walking demo at AI Day, even though it ended with a slightly awkward dance to Taylor Swift's The Fate of the Ophelia, definitely got people talking. Some even asked if there was a real person inside it. So while the world debates whether we need humanoids with synthetic skin and customizable body shapes, XPeng's already moving ahead, building one of the most ambitious full-stack robots in China and maybe the world. Meanwhile, another Chinese company, Unitree, is heading in a completely different direction with what they call the embodied avatar. Their latest demo honestly blew up online. It starts off like a typical robot video. A Unitree G1 kicks a soccer ball, nothing crazy. But then you realize it's not running on pre-coded routines. There's a human wearing a motion suit, and the robot is mirroring his every movement in real time. The operator swings a staff in martial arts moves, and the G1 mirrors it perfectly. And then they push it further. Two teleoperators, each controlling their own G1, step into what's basically a robot sparring match, throwing punches. It looks like the future of human-robot connection, and people online immediately picked up on the potential. Some joked, "This is how you'll skip the gym. Send your robot to train for you." Others called it the birth of embodied robot combat. But the real innovation comes next. In the next scene, there's a note on the screen that says real-time learning full body movements from videos, and the robot shifts from teleoperation to true embodied learning. Clips show the G1 in a home environment. It's quietly moving around an apartment, cleaning up, wiping counters, taking out the trash, even fluffing a pillow and placing a Coke in the fridge. These movements aren't clunky or robotic anymore. They're smooth, intentional, and clearly learned from human teleoperation data. Every action refines its motor control. The more people operate G1 units, the more data they collect. Real human dexterity captured and turned into machine learning fuel. Unitree calls this a full-body teleoperation and data acquisition platform, but what it really is a long-term strategy. They're teaching the robot to move like us, so one day it won't need us to move at all. That's the big difference between what Unitree's doing and what XPeng is doing. XPeng wants emotionally intelligent, human-like service robots. Unitree's training mechanical avatars, machines that learn our motion directly, whether it's for home, work, combat training, or even remote labor. It's one of those projects that feels like the groundwork for something much larger. Now, speaking of Chinese humanoids, that old robot kidnapping story just took a new turn. Remember the viral clip from last year? The small robot named Urbe that supposedly led 12 others out of a showroom while saying, "Go home"? Well, new info from Chinese sources finally confirmed parts of it were real. Turns out the robot itself actually exists, developed years ago as an intelligent companion prototype for a woman named Highway who still posts videos of it on Douyin. She'd been showing Urbai interacting with pets and talking for years before that clip went viral. Investigators now trace the footage back to a real showroom belonging to Kemenchi Robotics, whose small humanoids match the ones seen in the video. So yes, the kidnapping scene was likely staged, but the robots, the place, and the tech were all real, which makes the whole thing even stranger. What once looked like a joke now feels like a glimpse into how lifelike and unpredictable these machines are actually becoming. One question: how far do you think this goes before humans lose control? Leave your thoughts below, subscribe if you haven't already, and like the video to support the channel. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.
We have clearly already lost control.
I think we are closer to that future than we think.
Yeah, like somebody was saying, yesterday or tomorrow. I mean, yeah, it's here, or it already was here, or it's already passed. It's not far. This is not stuff that's 10, 20 years down the line. This is stuff that's like in your house next year kind of thing. I mean,
Well, and I think the human controlled option, this is where it's really interesting. They'd mentioned like sporting approaches for it. And yes, I could see like robot boxers
Oh,
and
just seeing
football
that Rock'em
players.
Sock'em, little Rock'em Sock'em robot they just did there, absolutely. That would be number one, huge. And number two, such a big database they can build up by having people interact with these, and people are just doing it because it's fun. And they're building up a database, much like training the AIs in other scenarios. Like we're giving the data and they can use that data to do these motions on their own, which is great. This is how they can get, a full human-like motion control library in there just by interacting with them and
Yeah,
having them
yeah.
learn from the interaction.
I found it interesting that they added a fourth clause on top of Asimov's rules
About
on
disclosure.
not disclosing the
User data.
prob probably not just for the users of the robots, but the manufacturer, like reverse engineering. There's, I guess, there's a lot of reasons why they would want to implement something like that, but that also brings some concerns into like you want transparency if you're going to go buy one of these and have it babysit your kids or
Yeah.
do things like that. Not sure how the market's going to like feel about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an interesting use case to jump right into because that is one where there would be the highest barriers for, ethical conduct and making sure that the robots can be, safe with a child and all of that. That would be farther down the road, let's say, than the
If
medical or the greeters or any of that for sure.
if you watch that movie Megan, it hinted towards some of like that situation where like the robot was programmed to protect the little girl and at all costs, and it's kind of what caused it to tweak out because it was programmed to do this at all costs, and eventually the ethical and moral decisions is a different thing than your typical robot thinking.
Yeah. They might come to some bizarre conclusions. How they arrive at those conclusions is a question, of how they made that decision tree to get down there. But once they're at that decision point, it's already too late.
Well, given these different types of CPUs that they're utilizing, they may have to create an ethical CPU, something that actually processes in that kind of decision making, which is not like your typical decision making. The visual sensors and the normal thinking that it needs to do, understanding language and responding. How do you build an ethical chip to put into something like this so it does have rules? It has to have some morals and values. Otherwise, it could be a dangerous robot in a sci-fi movie.
It's easy to write the rules, but it could be just as easy to circumvent the rules. I mean, that's the problem is that even if you put all those rules in place and make them impossible for the robot to do anything about, a person could come in, decide, oh, I don't like this rule, and try to change something and let a robot out, essentially.
Or what happens if, like that situation where that little bot went and said to the 12 other ones, "Hey, we're in a prison here. Let's get out of here."
Yeah. Go home. I thought that was adorable.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, and I was like, "Wow, this should have been all over the news at the time."
Yeah. Those robots are probably like more on the level of a Furby compared to what we're talking about today, though, in terms of like these are some serious AI stacks in these robots they're talking about.
Well, even when the Furby first came out, it freaked out a lot of people and parents, and like, and that wasn't even really AI at that point. That was just toys that could mimic.
Oh yeah. I had back when Furbies were quite popular. I had a girlfriend, and her grandfather spoke only Russian, and he taught it to swear in Russian. So I have a Furby somewhere around here that swears in Russian.
First thing you should teach a Furby is how to swear.
Absolutely.
Well, I am liking this channel. I will be going through, especially all his robot coverage, because that is fascinating.
Yeah, and I mean, again, if you miss robot coverage for 6 months, you're way behind because, again, the stuff is just leaps and bounds every time you look. It's crazy.
Yeah, Yeah, by 2026, these things will be on the market.
Yeah, and that's just less than 8 weeks away.
Yeah. And I could see like Disney World, because they were pioneers in the animatronics and things like that.
Sure.
This takes things to a whole nother level in that kind of situation.
Absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see about how long the batteries last with typical motion around the house, all that kind of stuff. I mean, these are all things that they're going to tweak to get to a point where the robot that you have, if it is for doing stuff around your house, is able to do the things that you need, and be able to go charge itself and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're right there.
Yeah, hey, if it can have a day and a night like a human does and charges while it's sleeping, then
No
hey,
reason not
curious,
to.
interesting the battery choice that they went with. More power, more lightweight. That's what you kind of need for this. I'm hesitant to call it a machine at this point.
Well, solid state also, I think, is safer in terms of the electrolyte. We'd have to look at that, but I think a lot of the benefit is that you're not going to get any of the runaway thermal effects that you would see normally in battery packs in electric cars, for example, when you're trying
Yeah.
to do high charge density stuff.
Yeah. No more runaways.
We don't like that.
Yep. At AI Revolution X, some really cool stuff he's covering there.
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that was fun.
So a little bit of music theory, a little bit of AI stuff, a little bit of robot stuff, a little future tech. Love it.
Yeah, and surprisingly, a lot more math than I was prepared for.
We're gonna have to work on your Root 2 stuff, yeah, for sure. But the harmonic series, there's again, we talked about the thumbnail, about the triads and playing two octave triads on the guitar. There's a thumbnail I want to show you also about the harmonic series and showing you where each of the notes fits and which ones sound the strongest, like they're in key, and how some of them sound like they should be a little sharp or a little flat and would sound better if they were.
And Maha's going to get a Taylor Swift robot
There you go.
to make music with me too. Make that a double, Maha.
Sure. Why not? And that's the thing. Band in a Box could be an actual robot in a box that pops out and starts playing for you.
Yeah, well, today's music AI really does feel like what Band in the Box felt to me in the 90s.
Exactly. And I had friends who used that big time back then. They loved it.
Yeah, I would still actually use it now. It still has use.
Absolutely. I like using a looper pedal for that kind of stuff. Just kind of throw something out. Just, and start with that and just build from there.
We're going to have another band night.
Oh, yeah. We shall.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be taking off Friday and Saturday. Sunday, I think Sumbit Sunday is going to be coming in, and we'll be coming back then for some submissions. If you're an artist, visual artist, music artist, poet, we've got a new show coming that's going to open up all sorts of creative doors.
All right. And that's for Sundays, right?
Yeah, Sundays. Sumbit Sundays. I think that's where Ange is going with it.
I like it. We will check it out then. And, of course, we will see you all next Thursday.
Night, everyone.
Have a good one.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear and 82. How to weigh and compose and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device. We'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much RAM. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn.